Texas A&M wide receiver Terry Bussey is primed for a breakout season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. On today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about the baseball series. Going to be one that we talked about a little bit throughout the week, but it is a big one, and it should go well, but we'll talk about it. The Lone Star Showdown is going to be played not on Saturday this year, and we'll talk about that. How do we feel about that? I've seen mixed opinions on that on social media. I will let y'all know my thoughts on that when we get to that part of the show. But we're going to get things kicked off talking about my favorite person in the entire world, and that is Terry Bussey. Those of you everydayers here at Locked On Aggies know that I absolutely think that Terry Bussey is primed for a massive sophomore season. You know, last year as a true freshman, I don't think that the coaching staff fully knew what Terry Bussey was yet. Whether that meant as an offensive guy or a defensive guy. And then, of course, Coach Elko comes out and says, Terry Bussey's a wide receiver. And last year, of course, 17 catches, 216 yards. He also had 16 carries for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 2 touchdowns on the year for the freshman to go with 318 all-purpose yards on offense. And I think that this year, you're going to see him be used as that similar gadget guy that you saw last year. Like I said, he had 16 carries. Now, we've discussed this. I think that you're going to see Casey Concepcion used this way as well. I think that he, in his own way, is going to be a gadget guy and get some carries. That's who he was at NC State. But looking at the upside of Terry Bussey and the future of the position, you know, he's just primed for this sophomore jump that we often see out of true freshmen to their sophomore seasons. I mean, that five-star jump is a real thing. And I think it's going to be difficult to keep. Here's the problem. If you want to hear the problem, and it is a good problem to have, Texas A&M has a lot of good wide receivers this year. I've said that I think Ashton Bethel-Roman is going to have a good year. I think that, of course, Casey Concepcion is going to be good. I like Jonah Wilson. I like Isaiah Williams. I think that Jerome Miles is going to have a good season. Mario Craver's awesome. It's a deep wide receiver room that you just didn't have last year. But at the end of the day, talent wins more than talent loses. And that's why I think that Terry Bussey is going to find a starting role for this Texas A&M wide receiver room. Problem is, like I said, I mean, it's just, I'm a big believer, and this is a controversial football take, and I know that a lot of folks are going to disagree with this. I've talked to a lot of coaches about this throughout my career. My high school coach agreed with this, but it's just that, like, there is the such thing as a slot receiver, of course, and there are such things as outside receivers. But I think that there are some players who are able to play both. I think Bussey could be a slot receiver. I think he could play outside is kind of my take. I think he's the type of guy that you'll do, you know, technically, I think if you had to label Bussey and Concepcion, you'd probably label them as slot guys. Now, Bussey's 6 foot tall. It's not like he's short, but at the end of the day, his shiftiness and big playability and make you miss ability make him a guy that many would consider a slot guy, right? We all agree on that. But I just kind of live on the stance of he's too good to not have the field. Find a way to make him one of your outside guys. That's my take on it. And I think that they're going to do that. If I had to guess right now, I think Concepcion and Bussey start at receiver. And then that next guy is where it gets really interesting because, I mean, Mario Craver is honestly a guy that, I mean, he's not the biggest guy at 5'10". I think, and the show that I did with Brian Smith a few weeks ago, last week it was actually, of the portal, that was a fun conversation. If you missed that, go check it out. But, you know, we kind of talked about that. We had the conversation of like, I think that Texas A&M has a lot of good slot receivers. And the question then becomes, how do you make this work? I mean, you know, Jonah Wilson can be an outside guy. Jerome Miles is going to be an outside guy. But, I mean, you don't have a ton. Your options at outside receiver are much thinner than your options are at some of these guys that we consider to be slot receivers. So what I'm saying is it's going to be interesting between, you know, Craver and Bussey and Concepcion, who are all more slot guys. How do we work them all into this offense? Because they're all really good players that need to be SEC caliber starting guys. Like they are. So we have to find reps for them. But Bussey, Casey Concepcion is, yes, he's, I think, a top 10 receiver in football. I believe he's an NFL player next year for sure. But when it comes to upside, I lean Terry Bussey all day, every day. I think that Terry Bussey is going to be an NFL star. I think you could play him in every position on the field and he would excel. So I think that it's going to, here's the deal. Whatever happens, Texas A&M is going to have a really good wide receiver not on the field as much as we would like because of how good the other receivers are. And like I said, that's a good problem to have. I would rather have that problem than not just flat out not having enough receivers at all. I also think that another reason I think that Terry Bussey could have a good season for the Aggies is because I see a world where Casey Concepcion is going to kind of take some of the heat away from the other receivers. I mean, every time when a coach is drawing up their game plan for the Aggies, the number one name on that list that they are going to be circling and writing down is without question KC Concepcion. So, I mean, knowing that, it's kind of hard to sit here and not say to yourself, man, the Aggies are going to have to find a way to get the football to other receivers. And I think that could, now Concepcion is, you know, and that my dad and I love this conversation of, and it's a big fantasy football conversation of, you know, a really good year one wide receiver. I think, like, I'll give you an example. I think Brian Thomas from the Jags. I think Brian Thomas of the Jags is a great example. You couldn't really say this about Malik Neighbors because he was the wide receiver one for that Giants team the whole year. Brian Thomas, you know, there were some other options. Christian Kirk was healthy at times. Gabe Davis, he just got released, but you get the point. You know, there were some serious options in that Jags wide receiver room, and Brian Thomas found a way to excel. Now he's going to be the guy. He's going to be getting all this attention. Can he get open? I think that KC Concepcion's a player that's going to be getting all that attention and still get open. And that's what's going to make him special this year for the Aggies. And I think that's going to make him a special wide receiver in the future. But there are going to be some reps where they do take some snaps and some plays where they take away KC Concepcion. That will happen. And on those plays, that's when Marcel Reed's going to roll out, find open space, and hopefully get the ball to Terry Bussey in space where he's able to make people miss. I mean, I've talked about it. Any way that you can get the football in the hands of Terry Bussey is absolutely awesome. I mean, that's all you can really ask for here is to get the football in his hands, because when you have the football in his hands is when he does exceptional things. And get it to him any way, shape, or form as much as you can. He's going to make people miss. He's going to score touchdowns, whether it's carries, whether it is screens, whether it's slants, whether it's a goal ball. I don't care. However you find a way to get the ball to Terry Bussey, get the ball to Terry Bussey. That is my opinion on him. And yeah, I think Terry Bussey is due for a massive sophomore year jump. The Lone Star Showdown was moved to a Friday. We're going to talk about that. How do we feel about it? We'll talk about it. We'll have this conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over with the Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV. Stick and 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller and subscribe. I think that this is just the best possible way to play games nowadays. There's hundreds of games. EA Sports College Football, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, so many different options there. It's just so nice to be able to take a controller and sign in with your Xbox information, and boom, you're playing on your TV. That is absolutely awesome. It is a huge breakthrough in gaming. It's going to save folks some money. I just think this is the best idea we've seen in gaming in a very long time. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV, Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen and Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. It was announced today, right? Was that today? Or was it yesterday? It was yesterday. It was announced yesterday that the Lone Star Showdown has been moved to Friday. It'll be on November 28th at 6:30 Central Time. Of course, this one's in Austin. Last year's game was in Kyle Field. That is the deal. I'm going to read some. This is under Texas A&M football's Twitter post about it. I'm going to read some fan comments, Texas A&M fan comments, and we're going to talk about this. Someone says, this better be a one-off for this year. College football is meant to be played on Saturdays. Someone said Friday. How am I going to miss class? But it's on Thanksgiving. Remember that. Someone said, boo, put it on a Thursday. Someone says, what are we doing, guys? Someone said black uniforms for Black Friday. Good call. I like that idea. I like that it's a night game. I am a big believer that when I sit and look at and think about college football, I am a bit of a purist, and I agree. I think it should be on Saturdays. Now, the 1 week that I am, obviously bowl games are different, but the 1 week that I am fine with football not being on a Saturday is the week of Thanksgiving. And I mean, looking at when you sit and you take a gander at that week, think about Thanksgiving. You're with your family, you're eating turkey, you're throwing the football around, you're watching the NFL, your fantasy football teams, you're making bets over with their friends at FanDuel. You want football that whole weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I just think that it's going to be really exciting. Okay, we'll watch the NFL on Thursday. We'll watch the Lone Star Showdown. We'll watch the Aggies beat the crap out of the Longhorns on Friday. Saturday, you've got the rest of the slate of college football. Rivalry week of some other great games. The Iron Bowl is that day. You got a lot of, the game is that day. You've got a lot of great rivalries on that Saturday. Then Sunday, you watch your NFL. I think it's a fun setup for the week, and I'm cool with it. I think that I like the idea of it. I think a lot of folks don't. And so once again, I want this to be a conversation in the YouTube comments. I just feel like what I like about it is I can focus on the Texas A&M game. I can enjoy the Texas A&M game. Hey, we can do a show about it. We can talk about it, right? And then on Saturday, you watch the rest of the great rivalries in this sport we all love. I think that's the fun of it. I'm all for the idea of some college football games being on a Friday on that week. I think that is the week that makes the most sense. I mean, if this was like a random week in October and it was on a Friday, I would sit here and I would tell y'all, I don't know. I don't like the idea of it. But I think that knowing that this game is on, knowing that it is on a Friday that week, I'm all for it. So I think that's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I know there's been some mixed opinions on that. And knowing that, I just think that it's going to be a fun game, and I'm looking forward to it. When it comes to this game, it's going to have a lot of implications for both of these teams. I mean, I think the best case scenario for Texas A&M is to be in a situation where if you go win this game on the road, you are a college football playoff team. Maybe even in the SEC championship, whatever that conversation lies. I mean, we know how good Texas is going to be, and we all here at Locked On Aggies believe that Texas A&M is going to be pretty good. So I think that this game's going to have a lot of implications for both of these football teams. Whether it's what would be ideal is if it was for seeding for both of these teams. If that was the concern with seeding, that would be really nice. But we really just don't know what those implications are going to be. But it's going to be quite interesting. So I'm excited about it. I like the idea of it being on a Friday. I want to hear y'all's thoughts, though. Leave that in the YouTube comments. How do we feel? Do we not feel good about being on a Friday? Do we wish it was on a Saturday? Let me know y'all's thoughts on that in the YouTube comments. Want to talk a little bit about this upcoming baseball series. And then I want to talk a little bit about 5 seconds about Bucky McMillan and what's going on in the basketball transfer portal. We'll talk about all that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So the baseball team has a massive weekend coming up against the Missouri Tigers. The first game is coming up, of course, this evening. That game is at 6. And I've talked about this series and the importance of it. Listen, at the end of the day, Missouri has yet to win they have not won a conference game. I've talked about it. The fact that has happened is absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any sense in the world how they haven't won at least one conference game. I've talked about that. I mean, in baseball, it shouldn't be hard to win one baseball game. It just shouldn't be. But this is now a chance and an opportunity for the Aggies to go and get a sweep, a series win for sure, or a sweep. I saw and I talked about this, the magic number. Someone, a college baseball Twitter, not just a Twitter person, they're a media member, talked about magic numbers, and they believe the magic number for Texas A&M is 3 games. And I think that's because of RPI. So if the Aggies sweep this weekend, then you're playing with house money next weekend. Then next weekend against Georgia, realistically, you're probably hoping that maybe if you somehow win that series, you boost yourself to a 2 seed. But I mean, right now, you have to look at this like we have 6 games left in SEC play. We have to win 3 of them to make the NCAA tournament. And 3 of those games are coming against the worst team, maybe in SEC baseball history. So I think that, like, what I'm saying is this Missouri team, they're that bad. Like, I guess the point I'm trying to get across is that it's not like, well, they're still an SEC team, but they are that bad. Like, realistically, I think that they are one of the worst teams in SEC baseball history. I mean, when we look at all the numbers, batting, they're dead last in the SEC, hitting 263 as a team. Pitching, they're dead last in the SEC with a team ERA of 9.27. 9.27. That is absolutely insane. They have given up 434 total runs. The next closest team is South Carolina, and this is a South Carolina team that gave up 24 runs last night, and they've still only given up 327 runs. Absolutely absurd. And then even their fielding is the worst, as they have had a total of 58 errors. Actually, ironically, Texas A&M is 15th in this category, but they only have 47 errors compared to Missouri's 58. This Missouri team is historically bad. I think that this is like what I'm saying is normally I would never, I think, call a sweep. You know what I mean? I would never call a sweep. But right now, I think that you should sweep this series. And then you go to Athens next week and knowing, okay, we don't have to win any games. If we just, I mean, you obviously that's not the mentality you want to have ever. But like for us fans, you know, that's not the mentality the team's going to have. But for us fans, we can sit to ourselves and say, okay, they could lose. They could get swept here against this elite Georgia team, and it wouldn't matter. I don't think that'll happen, but that's reality. So if you just sweep this team this weekend, I think the Aggies are in a really good spot. What I wanted to say real quick about the basketball team, I think that I saw someone, I got a question about this the other day. Someone was just asking what's going on with, we haven't gotten a recruit in a few days. I think that, you know, Coach McMillan's got a starting 5. I think that he's going to go get 2 or 3 more depth pieces, a couple more forwards or a couple more guards and another forward, maybe 2 and 2. He's going to go get a few more pieces. I don't think they're going to be elite game-changing pieces, you know what I mean? But I think that he's going to go get a few more solid pieces to come in and help this to come in and help this Texas A&M basketball team. So that's kind of where the basketball team sits right now. That's going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. Hope everyone had a great week. Hope everyone has a great rest of their Friday. Hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate that. Leave a like. If you're listening on the podcast platform, leave a 5-star review. All of that would help out a ton. I really, really appreciate you all being here. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this baseball series, and we'll see you next time right here on Locked On Aggies.